Hey kiddos, I hope everybody's doing super duper well. I know that this whole thing is kind of crazy, and um, just again, I think we've stressed it quite a few times that we are with you. So if you need any help whatsoever, please do not hesitate to reach out and ask. Um, I have, if you look over here on the right side, I have a chat that I invited everybody to. Um, so if you guys just want to shoot me like a quick message, you guys can use this. Connor and I used it last week. Um, I know I have another student. You can also do like a private chat. That's totally fine as well. It is just a quick and easy tool if you do just want to kind of just send a quick question, get it answered, and then you're good. Remember, you guys can also use the study skills page. Some of you guys have already done that, where you have just kind of said like, hey, here, do I have to do this? Can I use this? All that cool stuff. Keep doing that. Okay, you can keep using the classroom. Don't be afraid to use the chat. Email us. We are here to help you as much as we can. Rose, stop. So we have where the thing that, sorry, if you hear random dog cries, it's my dog. So I just am making this little video about our English work that Mr. Dempsey and I sent you guys. On the classroom, it has this huge description about what is in your packet for the last week and this week. So we have where you guys had the book and movie comparison graphic organizer. Remember, you can access the movie on Disney Plus if you don't remember watching it in class. The book obviously is a little trickier because you may not have a copy of it. We did upload it into the Google Classroom. So if you go to classwork, it is material and it is just a PDF version. And feel free to use that. But that graphic organizer will just kind of help you organize your thoughts, because then your second assignment is a writing assignment. Mr. Dempsey provided you guys with some sentence starters and general formatting for your paragraph. Utilize that and make sure that you write your paragraph about the movie and the book and how those two things are very similar, how they're very different. We talked about, they did a pretty good job. I mean, they had the author wrote the screenplay. So, I mean, the guy who wrote the book did help write the movie. But obviously we know that some things were different. Some of you guys pointed out quotes were said at different times. We talked about the fact that Shia LaBeouf is super duper skinny, whereas Stanley is always described as being very heavy set. But then we talked about how the director didn't want to put Shia LaBeouf in that situation where he had to gain a lot of weight and then suddenly lose a lot of weight in a very short period of time. So, I mean, there's lots of things that you can talk about in that compare and contrast. You guys also have a holes test. This test has where there are lots of different sections. I think there's a true or false, there's multiple choice, there's short answer, there's a short writing prompt. I mean, we know that there's a lot of sections to it. Just go section by section. We covered all the stuff in class. Obviously before we did this, Mr. Dempsey and I will we can cover some stuff in these little videos. And you guys can always reference the book. But again, we want to know what you know, not what Google knows. So don't just take the questions and put them into Google. We don't want to know what Google knows. We want to know what you know. Okay? Now, the thing that we are moving into for the NTI work, this unit of study that we are going to be doing, since they did just say that we will be out of school, we won't be returning until mid-April. You guys are going to be working on grammar assignments. Okay, so you can see here, we have commonly confused words, we have fragments, run-ons, and comma splices, and then we have an article about punctuation. So we're just kind of getting you started with some grammar and punctuation things. In the commonly confused words worksheet, we have where your assignment, Mr. Dempsey came up with the definitions for you guys. He shared what parts of speech each of the words were, and he gave you an example sentence. So what you're doing in yours is you are coming up with another sentence. Okay? So in your sentence, you have, oopsies. That's okay. I'll find that worksheet. You guys have where on this worksheet we have again, the definition, the parts of speech, and an example. So, like, we have, I think one of the ones was which and which. Okay. Well, this which, W-A-I-C-H, is a pronoun, and it's asking for information. Okay, so which dog is currently chewing on a bone in the room? And if to answer that question, it's Rose. This witch, W-I-T-C-H, is the woman who is thought to have magical powers, especially evil ones, and wears a black coat, pointed hat, flies on a broomstick, your prime Halloween decorations. Okay? Obviously, these two words are spelled differently, but we get them confused because of the fact that they are something called homophones. Homophones, the word homophone, just means, if we look at it, you have homo and phone. Okay? Homo, we know means same. Phone is relating to sound. So two or more words that have the same pronunciation but different meanings. You have where there. There are three different theirs. They're all spelled differently, but they have the same pronunciation, but different spellings and different meanings, different origins. Okay. So we have where homophones, they can get tricky. Homophones are also, if you've ever heard about like pun intended kind of thing, this is where homophones come in. Okay, you might have where, I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head, but we have where, I'll go to these. Like, okay, so see this? She's brainstorming, it's a snow globe, and she's making herself snow. Okay, obviously, you have some tricky things there. But I'm getting on a tangent mostly because I really love puns, and puns are a very high form of humor, but you would not be able to have a pun without our nice little homophones. Because you could always talk about which witch went and got the sandwich. Okay? I don't know. But we have where you would then pick out of these two words and then write a sentence. So maybe you want to use this witch and you want to say, which teacher misses me the most? The answer is me. I'm just kidding. Mr. Dempsey misses you a lot too. So does everybody else. But we also have where you could write a sentence about this witch and you could say, Miss Lloyd is most definitely not a witch. All right. So that's kind of what we're focusing on in that specific setup. Okay. In this other one, which I think, is a little trickier just because it's focusing on sentences, and different kinds of errors that you can make with our sentences. So with commonly misused words, you guys could accidentally use a word wrong. Say which when you actually mean the other which. You have where fragments, run-ons, and comma splices, this is all in your writing. Okay, so it's not like you really write in fragments, or if you don't speak in fragments, or you don't speak in run-ons or comma splices, we don't see the comma in your speech. But obviously this is super duper important in your writing. Okay, so if you look, I did set up some definitions for you. So we have the word fragment. So a fragment looks like a complete sentence, but it's actually missing a subject or an action. So if I just say ran to the store, we don't know who ran to the store, right? We just know ran to the store. That could mean I ran to the store. It could mean Mr. Dempsey ran to the store. It could be my dogs ran to the store. We don't know who is running to the store. You also have where it could be something like, instead of toilet paper, and then that's the sentence. Well, instead of what? Like, what do you mean? What are we going to use instead of toilet paper? Like, what is going on in this head? So a fragment is just a piece, and we are missing the rest. Okay? That's, again, fragments. We all kind of do them sometimes because, we sort of do. I know I talk a little bit in tangents where I might say one thing and then I get, like, my attention gets directed somewhere else and then I say something else. But fragment sentences can be fixed pretty easily. So in the case of who ran to the store, we could then just say Miss Lloyd ran to the store. Now we have a complete sentence. We have our subject, which is Miss Lloyd, right? And then we have our verb, ran. And we know that Miss Lloyd is running somewhere. Okay? That's how we fix our fragment sentences. Now, on the flip side of a fragment sentence, we have a run-on sentence. Okay? So a fragment is just a piece. A run-on just keeps going and going and going and going and going and going. And you're just like, oh my God, when is this going to stop? Okay? Because typically a run-on sentences has two or more sentences that have been merged together. So instead of using punctuation, it's almost like you just keep writing. And you just write and you write and write. And then you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I only wrote one sentence. Oh, that sucks. And it's like, no, really, you wrote like 5 sentences, but you only used one period. So you just got to kind of keep a lookout for run-ons. So we have where, in this example, Stanley's family was cursed in the book Holes. Nothing ever went right for him. He broke the curse with his friend Zero. We have 3 different thoughts in there. We have Stanley's family was cursed in the book Holes. We have nothing ever went right for him. And then we have he broke the curse with his friend Zero. Those are 3 completely different thoughts, but because of how we wrote this, it's only set up in one sentence. So the nice thing is, again, just like with a fragment, we just added a subject. With run-ons, we just break up the sentences. We just add punctuation. Okay, now we don't just add any punctuation. Okay, we can add periods. We can add semicolons, which semicolons are they are like periods. They mark the end of a sentence. But again, you can't just use a semicolon whenever you want. And we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. Or you could also use a word and a fanboy. Like a fanboy, like for and nor, but or yet so, and then a comma. But again, we got to be careful with commas because you could end up with a comma splice. So I'll show you a few things. So if we look at this sentence, we have nothing ever went right for him until he broke the curse with his friend Zero. Stanley's family was cursed in the book Holes. So we said Stanley's family was cursed in the book Holes, and then we did a period because that is a complete thought. Then we did nothing ever went right for him. Now what I did, and we could totally change this. We could put a semicolon. See, Google's telling us to just put a semicolon here and have nothing ever went right for him. He broke the curse with his friend Zero. What I chose to do is I just added a word. Okay? So I added a word to connect 2 of these sentences. Nothing ever went right for him until he broke the curse with his friend Zero. Again, we don't have to do it like that. We could do a semicolon, and that works just as well. Okay? So it's not like it's a one solution fix. You can kind of do a couple things, but you just have to be careful that you're not making even more errors. Okay? Oh, look at that. My little erase. Oh, no, it doesn't erase. Guys, I'm still kind of learning how to do the Screencastify fun stuff. I think it's weird that this doesn't eek. That's okay. I'll figure it out. Okay? Give Miss Lloyd like a day and she'll figure out how to fix it all. Now, we have where the last thing, we have comma splices. Now, comma splices and run-ons are super easy to kind of mix up. But there's one thing a comma splice has that a run-on doesn't have. Does anyone think they know what it is? Hint, hint, it's in the name. That's right, everybody. Comma splices have commas in them. Okay? So you have where, see that erase? It must have been because I switched things. That's okay. So we have where comma splices are similar, but they have commas. Okay, so this run-on sentence just said, Stanley's family was cursed in the book Holes. Nothing ever went right for him. He broke the curse with his friend Zero. This one, if we look down, Stanley's family was cursed in the book Holes, comma, nothing ever went right for him, comma, he broke the curse with his friend Zero. So it's possible that you might have had a run-on originally, and then you thought, well, Miss Lloyd says that commas can be added, so I'm going to add commas. The thing with commas is they can't just be added willy-nilly. There are lots of rules that go with commas. Kiddos from my class, we studied this at the kind of the beginning of this year. Commas have about 10 different rules that you have to follow. So we can't just add a comma wherever we want to. Because if we do just add commas wherever we want, we end up with comma splices. Okay? Now we can fix comma splices by replacing the comma with a period or a semicolon. So one of these two options. So again, we could go back to the example that we fixed up here. Stanley's family was cursed in the book Holes, period. Nothing ever went right for him, semicolon. However, comma, because again, you can add. So whenever I said you guys could use another word and a comma, we can do that. Okay? So however, he broke the curse with his friend Zero. So we have where, in that case, that's how it worked out. Okay? Now, downside, because Miss Lloyd didn't erase before she moved things, she's going to end up with this stuff on her screen. I wonder. No. Guys, it's okay. We're just going to blame Mr. Dempsey. All right. I'm just kidding, Mr. Dempsey. We won't blame you. So if we look at this, complete sentences and fragments, we're just trying to figure out which one's a complete sentence, which one's a fragment. So if it's complete, we're just going to mark it with a C. If it's a fragment, we're going to mark it with an F. Carissa studied for her test. Now, if I asked you guys if this was a complete thought, and I could hear your responses because I know you're talking to your computer right now as I do this, we know that this is a complete thought. Because we know it's Carissa, and we know that she studied. Right? Through the lobby and to the left. Do we sound like we have all the information there? Do we know what's through the lobby and to the left? Do we know if there's a bear waiting for us? Or zombies? Or is it the concierge? Or is that where we're like, what is through the lobby and to the left? Is that where we get breakfast? Who knows? Because we don't know that full picture, this is a fragment. All right. Threw the baseball down the hall. Is that a complete thought? Do we know who threw the baseball down the hall? No. Could be Gabby. That's who's barking right now, in case you guys are curious. Okay. The dog ran around in the yard. This is a complete thought, even though we might want to know specifically what dog, because we know that Miss Lloyd has multiple dogs in her life. We don't need to necessarily know exactly which dog. We just need to know that there is a dog, the dog, and we need to know that it ran. So this is complete. All right. The song which the band played. Do we know anything about this song? Do we know if it's Joe's favorite song? Is it the song that Haley hates the most? We don't know anything about this song. We don't know if it's being sung by Mitchell. We don't know if it's being danced to by Christian and Jeremiah. We just know it's the song. But we don't know anything else of that. So because of that, we end up with this being a fragment. So the important thing is, and the thing that might help you is, when you come across a sentence, if you just ask yourself, like, do I have all the information here? Then you know that you have a complete sentence. Okay? I'm going to erase, so that way Miss Lloyd does not make the same mistake. Because Miss Lloyd's going to learn from her mistakes. Okay? Pointer. Alright, so run-ons and comma splices. Correct each of the following run-on and comma splice sentences. So we do have where there's a blend here. And you have to figure out which one is it. Okay? So if we look at this one, Shakespeare's plays can be grouped as comedies, tragedies, and histories. Romeo and Juliet is a tragedy. Okay, we can definitely tell that that's two different sentences. Shakespeare's plays can be grouped as comedies, tragedies, and histories. That would be sentence 1. Romeo and Juliet is a tragedy. That would be sentence 2. Okay, and I know that when we come back, we are probably going to study Romeo and Juliet. I believe that's That's a plan. So we have where this we know is either a run-on or comma splice. So now we look for the one thing that makes them different. A run-on we know is just multiple sentences. Well, this is multiple sentences. A comma splice is multiple sentences with inappropriate comma or commas. Now these commas here, like comedies, tragedies, those are right. Okay, because we're separating that Shakespeare's plays have comedies, because that's one type, tragedies, which is another type, and histories, which is the third one. But this comma right here is not right. This is a bad comma. Okay, that comma does not belong there. Now, we could change this a few different ways. You guys could just change this right to a period. Okay. Now, maybe you're like me. I love using semicolons because I think semicolons are cool. This would be the perfect sentence to use a semicolon because a semicolon is acting like a period, but it's separating two sentences that are closely related to one another. Well, this is talking about, the first sentence talks about the different kinds of plays that he wrote. The second sentence is about a specific play he wrote and the genre it falls under. So we could use a semicolon in here and it works. Now, maybe you really like commas, and you're like, Miss Lloyd, I just want to put a word here. We could do that. Shakespeare's plays can be grouped as comedies, tragedies, and histories. We could say, like, specifically, Romeo and Juliet is a tragedy. And we could add that word there, and it would be just fine. I'm not going to spell specifically. It's going to take me 4 years, and then you guys are going to be bored. So we could change this a few different ways. Again, we could just take the simple way, and we could just put a period there. Okay. The next one, the food was left over, however, everyone had plenty to eat. So again, we know that there was food left over, and we know everyone had plenty to eat. So what we need to do here is we need to figure out run-on or comma splice. Well, multiple sentences, so it qualifies as a run-on, but we have a comma here that's not used correctly. So now we know it's a comma splice. There was food left over, comma, however, comma, everyone has plenty to eat. Now, it is possible you will sometimes see a comma, however, comma, and that technically does fall under one of comma's rules. The problem here is you have a complete sentence on this side and a complete sentence on this side. We can't use it. Okay? So we would instead have to change this. Again, we could do a period. We could capitalize the H in however, and we could be done. Or, since this is a word, however, and punctuation does have some rules on it, we could just put a semicolon and be done. The next sentence, Mom voted for Obama, Dad voted for McCain. This is not true, but it's whatever. You have where we can see, even Google is like, no, this is not okay. We have two different sentences. Mom voted for Obama, Dad voted for McCain. Okay. So now we know that we just need to separate these two sentences. Now, there's no commas, so we know it's not a comma splice. It's just multiple sentences, so it's just a run-on. And again, we can just fix run-ons by putting a period. I baked muffins. They had chocolate chips in them too. So again, this is same situation. Multiple sentences, no commas. We have this comma, but this comma is okay. All right. There's not a comma between muffins and they. I baked muffins. They had chocolate chips in them too. Those are two different thoughts. Again, we could use a period and capitalize the T, or we could just do a semicolon. Either way works. I like Tolkien books. Next, I will read the whole trilogy. Okay, we know this is not right. Okay, I like Tolkien books. I read the whole trilogy. We need to separate these out. So we know it's multiple sentences, and we know that we have two commas, and we feel like these commas probably aren't right. This one is the next, comma, I'll read the whole trilogy. But this first comma, this is not right. So what we would need to do is we would just put our period. Okay. Easy peasy once you get the hang of it. All right. Now, the last section is fragments and run-ons. These two sentences, you can usually tell when it's a fragment and when it's a run-on, okay? Because fragments are typically going to be very short. Run-ons are going to be typically very, very long, okay? Now, if you look at these, you can tell that these sentences are all about the same length, so we can't always just depend on sentence length. Dad needs a haircut, he will go to the barber on First Street. We have multiple sentences there. Dad needs a haircut, and he's going to go to the barber on First Street. We're just going to put our period there. The most expensive hotel in Boston. What about it? This is what you would get to create in this little space, because you're going to get to tell me what is so special about the expensive hotel in Boston. Is the most expensive hotel in Boston the most beautiful hotel there ever is? Or is the most expensive hotel in Boston currently infested with cockroaches? You got to tell us. And I'll let you guys create that one, because that one could be a lot of fun. Getting an after-school job is important because I need the money. Now, this is kind of an interesting situation because we have two different sentences here, and we would think that these sentences would be right. Okay? Because we're like, hey, there's two sentences, there's a period, must be cool. Wrong. It is not okay. Because we have getting an after-school job is important. Now, that is complete. Okay? This one, because I need the money, well, what's because? Because, like, what's the connection there? So what we actually need to do is combine these two sentences. Getting an after-school job is important because I need the money. Now we know why it's important. Now we know why the because. Okay? So we would just need to rewrite our sentence as combining these two sentences. You could even flip this around. You could say, because I need the money, comma, getting an after-school job is important. That's the fun thing with sentence writing. You guys kind of get to manipulate this how you want. The dance was fun. Everyone had a good time. So we have two different sentences here. We got to figure out how we fix it. Google's going to tell us that we need to use a semicolon. Or, just kidding, Google switched it up on me. Google wants us to just add and. That would make this sentence correct. The dance was fun and everyone had a good time. Number 5, after the tardy bell rang. Well, what happens after the tardy bell rang? After the tardy bell rang, Mr. Dempsey yelled at Joe to get in the classroom. After the tardy bell rang, Miss Lloyd chased a student down the hallway. After the tardy bell rang, Mr. Key announced that everybody needed to go home. After the tardy bell rang, a student had to go, the student who was late had to go see Miss Smith in the attendance office. You got to tell me what's happening after the tardy bell rang, because I don't know what happened after the tardy bell rang. I know Miss Artmeyer, Mr. Dempsey, and I all kind of stand out in the hall for a minute or two, making sure that you guys get into class. But what else is happening after the tardy bell rang? You got to tell me, and you're going to tell me on these fun little lines. Okay? So this worksheet, again, once you get the hang of things, fragments, run-ons, and comma splices can be a good time. They can. You just got to practice them. Okay? Now, if we leave that page, let's go back to our classroom. Now, we also have an article about punctuation. We need to read this article about some common errors with punctuation and answer these two questions. The article is funny and shows how punctuation can completely change what a sentence means. This is totally true. Okay? I love this article because it is such a silly article. Okay? So, I need to look for our article, because our punctuation says a lot of things. Okay? How long have I been doing this? 30 minutes. Okay. That's okay. So what I'm going to do, I am going to go ahead and read this article, and then I will post this fun little video. Okay? So I will read this article out loud. If you've read it on your own, awesome possum. I'm just going to read it out loud. Okay? So, our main focus is to focus on a grammar standard. You are going to read this article, take notes while you read, and answer the questions at the end. This is your copy, so feel free to write all over this worksheet. Okay? Why punctuation matters. A man-eating shark or a man-eating shark? So is it a man is eating the shark, or is it a shark that eats man? All right, that little dash tells us a lot. Because this, a man eating a shark, could be pretty hardcore, and a shark that eats man, also very hardcore. Rose, shh. Sorry guys, my dog wants attention. It's fine. Here's Edgar Allan Poe reflecting on the point of punctuation. That punctuation is important, all agree, but how few comprehend the extent of its importance. You guys will. The writer who neglects punctuation or mispunctuates is liable to be misunderstood. This, according to the popular idea, is the sum of the evils arising from heedlessness or ignorance. It does not seem to be known that even when the sense is perfectly clear, a sentence may be deprived of half its force, its spirit, its point, by improper punctuations. For the want of merely a comma, it often occurs that an axiom appears to a paradox. Really big words, that's okay, we're going to just power through. Or that sarcasm is converted into sermonoid. So again, punctuation could change that sarcasm. You guys love sarcasm. Miss Lloyd loves sarcasm. Mr. Dempsey loves it. Well, how we punctuate that sentence could change our sarcasm into being something totally different, where suddenly it's not sarcasm anymore. There seems to exist a vulgar notion that the subject is one of pure conventionality and cannot be brought within the limits of intelligible and consistent rule. And yet, if fairly looked in the face, the whole matter is so plain that its rationale may be read as we run. So, again, this is Edgar Allan Poe. He wrote all sorts of things between short stories, poetry, essays. He was a major critiquer. Basically made his enemies by critiquing people, so that's always a fun time. Okay, plus he was super duper I could come up with all sorts of stuff about Mr. Edgar Allan Poe. That'll be a totally different time. So he's saying punctuation is super duper important. It changes a sentence. It makes a sentence a sentence. If we just had no periods, no commas, it would just be very monotone. Okay, you're just going to read and it's going to be boring. Punctuation makes it interesting. Okay, so if we look, periods. I'm sorry you can't come with us. Okay, oh man, I'm really sorry too. This one says, I'm sorry, you can't come with us. So just by adding one period, we have changed the sentence. We've changed it from, I'm sorry you can't come with us, to, I'm sorry you can't come with us. Rose, relax. This one, commas with interrupting phrases. The Democrats say the Republicans will lose the election. So this is pointing, the Democrats are saying that the Republicans are going to lose. And our next sentence, the Democrats say the Republicans will lose the election. This interrupting phrase right here, the commas around say the Republicans, mean now that the Republicans are saying that the Democrats are going to lose the election. So you could see where those commas totally change the sentence. The first one says that the Democrats are going to win and the Republicans are going to lose. The second sentence is same words, just now we have commas, says that the Republicans are going to win and the Democrats are going to lose. Punctuation is powerful, guys. This one, commas with direct address. Call me fool if you wish. So call me fool if you wish. Say Miss Lloyd silly. All right. This next one, call me fool if you wish. So now I've directed the insult to you. This one, the first one, is you guys can call me silly and a fool. This second one is me calling you guys a fool. Okay? Commas with non-restrictive clauses. The 3 passengers who were seriously injured were taken to the hospital. So now the 3 passengers are taken to the hospital. Okay? The 3 passengers who were seriously injured were taken to the hospital. So this one suggests that the 3 passengers are the only ones who are seriously injured. They were the only ones injured and they're going to the hospital. Okay? This one suggests that there are more passengers who are injured, but the 3 passengers who are seriously injured are going to the hospital. Everybody else doesn't have to go. Commas with compound clauses. Do not break your bread or roll it in your soup. Do not break your bread or roll it in your soup. Now, this, I believe, is more in terms of our lovely, this is the Oxford comma. Okay. So we have where this separates it out. So this one, do not break your bread or roll in your soup. So do not break the bread. Or like, don't break it, don't roll it. This one, do not break your bread or roll in your soup, is kind of setting up the, hey, we have two different words to basically say your bread and your dinner roll. Okay. Serial commas, again, this one, Oxford comma. I have a picture of this, I think, in my classroom. This book is dedicated to my roommates, Oprah Winfrey and God. So we have where it's been set up. Roommates are one dedication, Oprah Winfrey is another dedication, and God is another one. So we've separated those three different dedications out. This next one, this book is dedicated to my roommates, Oprah Winfrey and God. This makes it sound like her roommates are Oprah Winfrey and God. Okay. Colons and commas, a woman without her man is nothing. So this is just saying, like, women have to have men because without them, women are nothing. This next one, a woman, colon, without her, comma, man is nothing. This one suggests, whereas before, this first sentence tells us, like, women are nothing without men. This one tells us men are nothing without women. Quotation marks and commas. The criminal, says the judge, should be hanged. So this is a judge saying the criminal, the one who has committed a crime, should be hanged for his crimes. This next one says the criminal says the judge should be hanged. So now we've changed it where now the criminal is sentencing the judge to death, which isn't how it works. So we need to make sure we're watching our quotation marks. Hyphens with compound words. So this is in our title. I saw a man eating shark. So Google is like telling us we need to add an A because it's saying like, hey, this man is eating a shark. We need to make sure we know that. Whereas the next sentence, I saw a man eating shark. Well, this shark is now one that eats men. Apostrophes with contractions. So a clever dog knows its master. So this one is like a clever dog knows who his or her owner is. Okay, because this is its. So it's the plural version of it. A clever dog knows its master. My two dogs, as much of little buttholes as they are, know that I am the one that gives them food. This next one, a clever dog knows its master. This contraction, because of this apostrophe S, this is telling us that this word is actually, it is. So a clever dog knows it is master. My dogs are probably in this realm. Well, they probably think that they are in charge. And they probably are. Okay? So again, this first one puts me in charge as the owner. And the dogs are my little creatures. This one, a clever dog knows it is master, puts me as basically the servant to the dogs. All right? My dog is the master. Which is probably true, especially if you asked him. Right, Rose? Rose, are you the master? Yeah, now she's quiet. Lily just looked at me like I'm insane, though, so that's fine. Apostrophes with possessive nouns. The butler stood by the door and called the guests' names. So the butler is standing by and calling, like, just guess. The butler stood by the door and called the guests' names. So this one is now telling us that they are calling specific names. Okay, these are the names that belong to the guests. So it's not like this first one, the butler's just standing by the door and calling names out. So, that would be like if you guys are walking in my classroom and I'm just saying like, Haley, Jeremiah, Joey, Christian, Mitchell, Joe, Jaden, just randomly blurting out names. That's not the point, and it's not me saying it and then Joe suddenly turns back and is like, what? That's different. This one, but the second one, This would be, as you come in my room, I'm calling your name. So Haley comes in and I say, Haley's here. Joey comes in, Joey's here. Jeremiah's here. Christian's here. Everybody's here. And I'm calling specific names out. Basic rules of punctuation. We're going to read 2 Dear John letters. All right. And this, just because of where they put periods and commas, it totally changes the sentence. So this first one, Dear John, I want a man who knows what love is all about. You are generous, kind, thoughtful. People who are not like you admit to being useless and inferior. You have ruined me for other men. I yearn for you. I have no feelings whatsoever when we're apart. I can be forever happy. Will you let me be yours? Jane. All right. So you have where this one sounds really awesome, right? John is a man who knows all these things. Okay? We see I want a man who knows what love is all about. John must know it. John's generous, kind, and thoughtful. All right, people who are not like you admit to being useless and inferior. So he is useful and he is an awesome person. He has ruined Jane for all other men. She yearns for him. Sorry. All right, 7 minutes later and they're quiet now. So sorry about that. So this one is just kind of stressing John is just perfect, okay? She can be forever happy if he lets her be his. This next one, Dear John, I want a man who knows what love is. All about you are generous, kind, thoughtful people who are not like you. Admit to being useless and inferior. You have ruined me. For other men, I yearn. For you, I have no feelings whatsoever. When we're apart, I can be forever happy. Will you let me be? Yours, Jane. So now we have where this one puts John in a very negative light. John is no longer a man who knows what love is all about. John is now a man who needs to know what love is. This one, he was generous, kind, and thoughtful. Now, everybody else is generous, kind, and thoughtful. This one, people who are not like you admit to being useless and inferior. She's now demanding that he admit that he is useless and inferior. You have ruined me for other men, I yearn for you. This one, you have ruined me. For other men, I yearn. I have no feelings whatsoever when we're apart because obviously they're just so happy. She can be forever happy if she's his. This one, for you, I have no feelings whatsoever. When we're apart, I can be forever happy. So we have the same exact words were used. This is 100%. There is no word difference. Okay? The only difference is punctuation. This punctuation, John is fantastic. He is the man every woman wants. This one, John sucks. John is a horrible human being, and Jane just is about to get a restraining order on him. Okay? Now you have 2 questions that are all about you. Answer each question with complete sentences and correct punctuation. Okay? So why do you think punctuation matters? Think about Edgar Allan Poe. Think about what we've been saying. How would this sentence go if there wasn't any punctuation whatsoever? Would John know how Jane actually feels about him? Why does punctuation matter so much? Why is it important? Why are we making you study it? Number 2, which example from above do you think is the most important one and why? So of all of these, which one do you think is oof, that's the big one? Periods, maybe you really think that this is the super duper important rule to use a period whenever need be. Or maybe you think that hyphens are super important because you want to know that you're not seeing a man eating a shark. You want to tell everyone that you saw a shark that was eating a man. Okay? So you tell me which one you think is the most important and why. Okay? So those are our grammar stuff for today. You do have some new Zella articles. We have 2 different ones. Mr. Dempsey and I both found ones relating to the coronavirus. One is about high school, and I believe it's high school, and basically still being able to get food out to the kids. The other one is more an opinion piece about whether or not you think that we are panicking. So both of those do have about 4 questions to each. I'm going to let you guys do those ones on your own. I'm sure I'll probably do a little one of these things and I'll read the article so that way you guys can hear it if you are struggling with it. But other than that, I'm not going to, I won't give you the answers to our multiple choice. Okay, Mr. Dempsey and I want to test your guys' reading comprehension, so I will put up a screen, craftify in just a little bit of me reading those articles, and then ultimately letting you guys answer those questions yourself. Okie dokie? So I will have a video again in just a few minutes, and hopefully Miss Lloyd will figure out all the cool, fun things that she can do with this thing. All right? So, like Mr. Dempsey said in his algebra video, make sure you guys are staying safe, washing your hands, practicing this social distancing. Again, social distancing doesn't mean that you guys suddenly crawl into a hole and never ever talk to anyone ever again. It just means that you are keeping some distance, like physical distance between you and others, because we don't want you guys to get sick. Mr. Dempsey and I miss you a lot. We are really, like, I know I'm super bummed. I know Mr. Dempsey's bummed. We're bummed that we're not coming back to school in about a week. We miss you guys. So just, again, use all the different ways to reach out to Mr. Dempsey and I, because we miss you guys a lot. So if you guys want to post on here and you want to ask us how we're doing, you want to say hi, awesome, do it. If you want to do it in the study skills, if you want to do it in the algebra, don't be afraid to post. If you want to email us, email us. I've got my email up at all times, or you can chat. I do have both email and chat up from 10 to 2 every day this week. So feel free to reach out, because I miss you guys. All right. So have a good day. I'll be back on in a little bit. All right. Bye, guys.